You're watching a recorded session from our virtual conference, Freelance Fest, brought to you by Top of the Funnel. Freelance Fest featured amazing sessions on everything from cold pitching and building a freelance pipeline to optimizing your LinkedIn profile. You can watch all of those sessions here on our YouTube channel, so be sure to check those out and subscribe. But I also want to invite you to become a member of Top of the Funnel. You can join over 4,000 writers, freelancers, entrepreneurs, and marketers who ask questions, share feedback, post pet pictures, find work opportunities inside our Slack community. It's 100% free to join. Just visit jointofu.co and sign up. Enjoy the workshop.
Hey everyone, welcome to my session called My Invoices Are Late and I'm Not Getting Any New Clients, but I just applied to another job board gig, so I have that going for me, which is nice. Or as Tyler and David and I decided to call it, How to Stand Out as a Freelancer. If you're not sure who I am and we haven't met, hi, I'm Brooklin Nash. I'm one of the co-founders of Beam Content, a B2B SaaS content marketing agency. You might be wondering what an agency owner is doing, talking about freelancing. So I have a few quick relevant facts for you. Number one, I've hired close to 24 freelancers, both in my previous full-time roles and then now these last 2 years at Beam. Maybe more importantly, I was a freelancer for 8 years. I didn't have a quote unquote real job until 8 years into my career, and then kept freelancing on the side as I worked full-time. Over those few years before I joined a full-time role, I went from about 10 cents a word to over $1 per word before starting Beam and joining those full-time roles. I also am one of the partners with Peak Freelance along with Elise and Mike, so feel free to check out our community over there. And this isn't so relevant, but it's a fun fact. I like memes. If you don't know anything else about me from social, it's probably that. Standing out as a freelancer doesn't mean that you have to bend over backwards to your clients' every whim. It doesn't mean you have to have the most polished portfolio or website or even messaging. And it definitely doesn't mean you have to be the most vocal on social and build your personal brand. To me, what standing out means is being clear about who you are, what you offer, and the value that you bring. We don't want to get in this cycle where we feel like we can't say no because we want to make our clients happy. And if we say no, then we'll never get work again. That's not what standing out is. It's about being clear about who you are, what you offer, and the value that you bring. I do want to get a little more specific than that. So I'm going to try to get through all 5 of these in 20 minutes. For me, there's 5 difference makers for standing out as a freelancer. Number 1, building a strong, engaged network. Number 3, curating a varied and relevant portfolio. Number 4, homing in on it and communicating a differentiated offer. And number 5, maintaining a repeatable, sustainable process, both for you and your clients. So let's start with number 1. Build a strong, engaged network. I don't mean you have to go out and build your personal brand. I'm not one of those hype bros saying all you got to do is post every day and you'll see that is a route. I get the irony that it's the route I took. I have been very active on social the last 4 years, and a lot of my freelance requests when I was freelancing and now requests at Beam are inbound by way of social. But that's not the only way to go about it. To me, the core of it is what I did over the course of a few years, even as I posted nearly every day and took more of the building the personal brand route. It was more that I took a couple of hours each week to reach out to or take time to talk to on a call folks like other content marketers. What's going on in your space? What are you learning? What's difficult? Industry experts. If you're if you're writing about HR or product development or product management or AI, take the time to reach out to those in the space that may not be the ones that hire you, but know what they're talking about and may be able to point you in the right direction. Just build your understanding in the space. Number 3, connect with tangential creatives. I don't even know if that's the right word, but I'm saying tangential creatives. If you're a writer, take time to connect with designers and brand marketers and email marketers and SEOs. Why? Number one, so you can learn a little bit more about the wider marketing ecosystem and tactics and strategies. But number two, so that you kind of have your own bench of referrals. So when folks come to you, you can say, oh, I don't do that, but I know somebody who can, and connect them. The more you can make those types of referrals and intros, the more you're going to stick out in a potential client's mind. And then finally, maybe this is preaching to the choir, but take time to connect with other freelance writers. You're all here, which is fantastic. Love seeing you here. Take some time for one-on-one connections with freelance writers. The first 5 years of freelancing, I didn't do this. I was on my island just figuring it out, and I did a little bit of everything, and then I did a lot of things wrong. And then at about the 5-year mark, I started taking time to connect with other freelancers and hear about how they're working on things. And it made a world of difference in my boundaries, in my pricing, in my client relationships, in terms of standing out in a pretty crowded freelance space. And then translate all of that into an actual friends list. It can be a Google Sheet, it can be a note on your phone, whatever it is. Just keep that list handy for referring work out, for making intros. If somebody's looking to learn more about email marketing or AI or product management, you can make those intros. And so that you can reach out to them with questions as you go through your own writing process. Number two, work on a consultative sales approach. The main question any potential client is asking when they come to you is, will I be able to collaborate with this person on my needs? And there's more than a couple layers to that. It's their needs. Does this freelancer match what our current need is? And collaborate. Does this person seem like somebody who communicates well, asks good questions, sends a follow-up when they say they're going to send a follow-up, and adds value throughout the conversation? So this is a bit for a SaaS sales team. This is a bit sales 101 level, but I've written this before and I want to say it again. Freelancer, you are a salesperson too. You're selling your own services. Salespeople are active. They are consistent. They reach out a lot and they try to understand the prospect's needs. So when I say consultative sales approach, I mean, show them you know them, reference a recent campaign or their website. At the very least, if you're applying to a gig, make sure you follow the instructions. Start the conversation with questions, whether you're reaching out in a DM or an intro email or cold email or on the first call. Lead with questions. What's going on? What's caused you to reach out about working with a freelancer? What's something that's worked well in the past? What hasn't worked well in the past? What are you looking to accomplish in this next year? Start with questions, which goes into leading the conversation. On that first call, you can ask a bunch of questions. It's part of leading the conversation, but it's also setting up expectations for the call. Jumping on a 30-minute call and just saying like, hey, what's up? What do you need? Oh yeah, this is kind of what it is. I can kind of do that. Here's some stuff I've done. That never goes as well as jumping on a call and saying, hey, Katie, it's great to meet you. I know you sent over XYZ, so it's looking like you're looking for ABC. Is that right? Great. Today, I'd love to spend the first 10 minutes or so just trying to understand where you're at and what you're working on. And I can spend a few minutes sharing how I work and what I focus on. And then let's save the last 15 minutes for digging in a little bit deeper there and seeing if we're a good fit. If you can start out the conversation that way, I won't guarantee, but those conversations, maybe 9 times out of 10, are going to go much, much better than just jumping on without a clear agenda. Number 4, maybe this seems like a subpoint, but I wanted to call it out on its own. Be clear about your pricing and your process. So in that second part of the call, if you're setting the agenda and leading the conversation, in that second part of that first call, you should be laying out what your pricing is and how it works and what your typical process is. okay, you're sharing you need XYZ. That was roughly $600 per article. If you're wanting to do 4 articles, $2,400 a month. How does that sound to you? Get it out on the call rather than it being a surprise down the line and them having to adjust or disqualify you because of your pricing. Maybe even more importantly, be clear about your process. Great, you want to do this ASAP. I typically kick off at the beginning of every month to make sure there's a consistent cadence. We can plan on kickoff for October 3rd. From there, I spend about 2 weeks onboarding with you to understand your product, your audience, your wider go-to-market motion, and then I'll be ready to jump in with deliverables. From there, I have about a 2-week turnaround time to get you the drafts that you need or whatever the deliverable is. Lay that out as clearly as possible. Number one, it signals to them that you know your stuff and you know what you're doing. And number two, it makes sure there's no surprises on the second call or after kickoff about your pricing and your process. Number 5, share value. In the first conversation, give advice if you can in that first conversation of, have you considered this? Have you looked into this? And definitely share value in your follow-ups. Don't just send something 2 weeks later saying, hey, checking in on this, how's it going? Even if it's just expanding on the email a little bit and saying, hey, noticed the new website is up. Excited to see new content. Are you still looking for help with content production? Or, hey, I read this LinkedIn post that seemed relevant to our first conversation. Thought you might find it interesting and send it over. So just share value throughout the process. Finally, this is less the consultative side and more of just the sales process side. Keep following up. Most freelancers stop after 1 or 2 follow-ups. Most salespeople stop after 1 or 2 follow-ups. Don't be afraid to follow up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times over the course of at least a handful of months, if not over the course of a year, until you get a no, a clear no, or yeah, let's explore this further. Number 3, curate a varied, relevant portfolio. The goal here is to make it as easy as possible for potential clients to find themselves in your work. So to put some context on this and to put it bluntly, early on when we were launching Beam, if a freelancer came and applied and all they had were SEO articles within MarTech, that was a no from us. Why? Because we work with a variety of tech companies that sell to VPs in the C-suite, in mid-market and enterprise. So we really need writers steeped in writing for a CEO or CMO or a VP of learning and development and so on. So part of this is the portfolio itself, and part of this is varying your work early on rather than pigeonholing yourself into just one type of content for one type of industry. Spread out, figure out what you like and what works well, and then start building your portfolio from there. Around that 5-year mark, I got my first tech client and I realized, hey, I think this is a lot more fun than writing product descriptions for that DTC brand that I had been doing or doing social media for this brand. Let me double down on this B2B tech thing because that seems really interesting. And then I started to build out my portfolio. I used that first client to share examples with potential clients and then landed a couple more within B2B tech. And then I used those samples to land a few more and it just snowballed from there. So as you build out your portfolio, look for variation in terms of content type, ebooks, articles, case studies, guest posts, pillar pages, yes, SEO. The more variation in what you're able to produce, the better. I'm looking for the ability to expand on a topic into a 20-page ebook and make it compelling and engaging and concise. And I'm looking for the ability to write a quick hitting 800-word thought leadership article. Look at industry. Are you moving within this broader category of SaaS, or are you within just one specific piece of that much, much broader landscape, especially if it's MarTech? I know plenty of successful freelance writers who have niched down into, say, HR. They are well steeped in HR and people management, and a lot of their clients stem from that. There's been whole agencies that focus on just case studies or just on industrial manufacturers. So I'm not saying you don't niche down into an actual vertical industry niche. I'm just saying if you're early enough in your process to be asking, how do I stand out as a freelancer? It probably means you can branch out a little bit and see what works for you. Same note as the what I said earlier about portfolio. Can you write for a technical audience? Can you write for the C-suite? We're looking for variation there in the audience. And then purpose. Is this all for brand? Was it all for SEO? Were you involved in the strategy? Do you have your own personal writing? Headline, look for variation in your portfolio. This is a side note, but please err on the side of published content, even if it doesn't have your byline. I'll just believe you, honestly, rather than Google Doc links. Okay, this is my fourth time trying to record this within 20 minutes, and we are now in point 4 or 5, so sorry I'm speeding through. This is one example of a portfolio I think accomplishes what I was talking about. It's simple. This is one of our writers, Rosie. It's simple, but it has about 10 different samples to choose from, and it's a wide range of different types of formats and audiences, even as she's focused in on HR. Okay, number 4, home in on and communicate a differentiated offer. You're looking for the difference between I'm a freelance writer and I help these types of companies do this through that process. So you're getting very specific about, again, going back to what I think standing out means. You're being very specific about the value you bring and who you are and what you do. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. You can niche down into an industry. I mentioned industrial manufacturing earlier. That's Gorilla 76. Some of these are, actually all of these are agencies, so that maybe not the best examples for freelancers, but you can apply the same type of thinking for your own freelance biz. You can niche down into a specific vertical or industry. You can niche into a specific type of deliverable, like Case Study Buddy. You can leverage your channel expertise. I do social media growth and management for this type of company or for executive. Create compelling nurture campaigns that convert, something that has to do with channel, and or a specific approach or process. That's what we do. We're all over the map when it comes to verticals and types of deliverables and even channels. But we have a very specific process about content that starts with either proprietary data or with your internal and external SMEs. Again, going to say it again, get clear about your pricing and packaging at this stage. So this is an example from Erin Balsa. She created House of Bold and kind of leveraged her freelance into that business. To me, this is an example of great positioning. They do a lot of things, but the way they talk about, like, you can jump on and say, oh, you can help me with my team. You can help me improve our process. You can help me with content strategy. Oh, and you can help me with content execution. But then she lays out how they do it. I think that's the thing that makes the difference. Okay, number 5, maintain a repeatable, sustainable process. I've said this before, I'll say it again here. You can be an excellent creative, but if you can't keep to a schedule, ask good questions, or communicate well, it's going to be really difficult for you to collaborate as a freelancer. Or put more bluntly, it's going to be really difficult for clients to collaborate with you as a freelancer. So maintaining a process, I mean that in 2 ways. The big picture, having a set process for how you work with clients, going back to that consultative sales approach. If you can introduce that process on that first call, you are going to stand out. And I mean, when I say working with freelancers, I mean how you do onboarding, what you need from them, and what the timeline looks like. Your timelines for both turning around first drafts and getting edits back. How many rounds of feedback you include and what your preferences are. For example, our guidance to our clients is you can have as many rounds of feedback as you want, let's just make sure they're batched. If you have 3 people reviewing this V1, let's get all of their review, and then we'll go and create a V2. And that's the kind of line in the sand that we've drawn, and it's worked out well. Nobody's objected to that. In fact, it's made the process better, and I think they've appreciated it. And then finally, expectations for their end. We get the question a lot, how much time is this going to take me each month? If you can alleviate that worry from a potential client's mind, that's what they're going to remember from your call with them of, hey, in general, I expect you to spend about half an hour with each deliverable, maybe 10 minutes on the front end to review my brief and make sure everything's looking good and we're set, and then 20 minutes on the review side, up to an hour if we want to jump on a call to review. Just laying out that expectation of what their commitment is going to look like. The sub point here is then you can start to take on more of the process. If they're creating briefs for you, look into what it looks like for you to create those briefs and get approval. It's just one example. But by being clear on your big picture process, you can start to take on more of that process with time and charge more. Not just stand out, but charge more as you build that. The other side of process is smaller picture. I mean, things like your own writing process. Know how much time it's going to take you to write something. When I sit down to write a brief, I know it'll take me about 45 minutes. When I sit down to write a 2,500 word piece, I know I'm going to spend about an hour doing research and outline on one day, about 3 hours writing on the second day, and another hour of editing on the tail end. I mean, a process for project management. Are you on their tools? How are you accessing them, and how often, and how are you making that consistent? We started sending weekly reviews to our clients, which has worked really well. Of here's where we are with stuff that's on our plate. Here's where we are with stuff that's on your plate. That connects to clear communication. Hey, just so you know, this is coming on this date, and then stick to that date. Hey, I had a question on the brief. I wasn't clear about point A versus point B. Would you clarify for that? So clear communication and good questions. It sounds like a lot, but if you're putting your own writing process in place, you're maintaining good project management habits, and you're communicating well and asking questions, all of the time that you spend on that will free up more time to focus on the writing itself, because you're going to save time on the tail end by front loading a lot of those questions and communication. And that was 5. To really boil it down, this is what it looks like in practice. First, you just got to do a lot of work, like a lot of work. Then you figure out what you like in that work and improve on it. Then you can start charging more for less of that same type of work. Cut out what you don't like doing, and then adjust to whatever level of work you want. Don't let other people define what success or what the end goal is.